G'day guys, welcome to episode number 5 of the Big Fights Attended. I hope you're enjoying the little mini series that I'm putting together there. It's as it says, just some of the fights, the big fights I've attended over the years and my experiences with those events. In this episode, we've got Floyd Mayweather, Berto, we've got Canelo Alvarez and Amir Khan, Canelo and Triple G, the first fight. And a little bit of a bonus for this one I've chucked in is Shannon O'Connell versus Sandy Tsgouris. Now you might say, well, it's not necessarily a big fight, especially on the scale of those other ones, but it was a big event. It was a massive experience for all involved, and the fight itself was probably the best female fight that I've ever seen. If not, one of the best fights I've seen. It was just unbelievable. So I've just chucked that in there. I've got some highlights up there, and if you do yourself a favour and check the fight out because it was magnificent. So we're going to actually start on that one. So I'll get the highlights sort of going now. Just a little bit of a backdrop to this one. I took Shannon over there with Susie Ramadan as well, which probably might surprise a few people because these have probably been sort of billed as arch enemies over the years. But we all went together. Went with my old trainer as well, Pat Connolly, and Luke Meldon, who was Shannon O'Connell's trainer at the time as well. We went over to New York. I think it was for a week and a half or something. We were there. It was great. We stayed at. I think we were in Brooklyn. We went to Gleason's gym and trained there daily. It was great because I think there was Heather Hardy and a few other girls there that was training at the time that Shannon and Susie had the opportunity of sparring. Actually, I don't think, and you see there, a really nice way to start the fight, by the way, is Shannon here. But Susie did some sparring. Shannon just did some training, of course. And this was actually in Toronto, Canada, strangely enough. We got I think the organisers found out that we were actually going over there for a training camp and offered Shannon a fight against unbelievably tough Sandy Tsgouris, the local girl. And you can see here just throwing bombs, I mean, if you know Shannon, she loves to go in there and get it on, as does Sandy Tsgouris. She was tough as nails. And, the first fight was myself, Luke and Pat in the corner. The eventful first round there. I must admit, in the first round, I thought it was all over. I thought we'd gone all that way and done all that work, and it was going to be over in the first round when Shannon got dropped. But she bit down on her mouth guard. She gritted her teeth and then just went to war. You can see that this was an 2-minute round fight. It was a big card actually. On the main event was Adonis Stevenson and Tommy Carpensey. It was for the WBC light heavyweight title. Also on that card, Errol Spence fought Chris Van Heerden. And also Razor Ruddock. You remember him? He fought Tyson back in the day, 30-odd years ago. 2 fights with Iron Mike. So he was on the card as well. So it was great. We met Antonio Tarver and Lennox Lewis beforehand, which was great as well. And just being in the corner, it was a really difficult fight because not only was she up against, a very, very tough fight in Sandy. I remember in the corner, there wasn't enough room for us all to be in the corner, so Luke was there and he was trying to get up in the ring, and I was actually literally passing stuff through his legs in chucking it. He'd put the mouth guard on the canvas and kick it out the back, and I would get it and wash it, and then I'd have to chuck it back on the canvas in between his legs, and he'd pick it up. That's how much little room that we had. They put us right in the corner where we had the TV cameras right there, we had officials right there. I mean, when you think about it, it was quite ludicrous that we've got a fight, national TV, it's a PBC event, and the cornerman can't even get up in the ring. It was that cramped in there. So literally, Luke got up in the ring and that was it. And it got a little bit complicated because Shannon got a bad cut. You can see, I'm not sure whether she's bleeding there, got a bad cut. So Pat Connolly's trying to get up. And watch this here, the right hand. I was just going to say, Pat Connolly was trying to get up and tend to her cut, and Luke's trying to do a thing. It was a shambles. But you can see there, she'd lost the first few rounds, but she hit her with that right hand. You're going to see the replay again here. This is after she got up. It was just an unbelievable right hand. I thought the fight was over there. I thought she'd pulled it out of the fire. It was a beautiful right hand. You're going to see it in slow motion in a little bit here. And it's just a shame that she dropped her with only about 20 seconds to go, so there wasn't enough here. You can see here, she pauses and then just throws a right hand over the top, and it was just a pearl of a punch. It happened right in front of us, and the sound it made, as I said, I thought that was it. But after this round, she probably lost her chance here. I think she got cut on the next round. You can see Sanya there starting to pick up the pace. But look, it was a great atmosphere, great fight. It was a little bit of a shame. It was probably a little bit more down in the pecking order as far as the card goes. You see there that bad cut with Shannon. Didn't hinder her though, even though she was probably losing most of the rounds. Just absolutely, just as I said before, just dug deep and with the blood, and you can see she was taking some big shots. She gave as good as she got though, I will say. This is round 5 or 6. It was actually an 8-rounder. I think they actually had that wrong. But both girls just put in everything for the fight. It was just a great experience. As I said before, it was tough with all the conditions, but just to be there, it was a big event. PBC, I think it was the first fight. I can't remember the name of the promoters, but they were apparently a big deal in Canada, and they're trying to reboot, the Canadian boxing scene. And they have Errol Spence and Razor Ruddock on the card, who's a Canadian, of course, and Adonis Stevenson, who's probably one of the better Canadian fighters that they've ever had. So, also on the card, I remember there was a young man named Pritchard Colin. He's 15-0 at the time. He had a great knockout on the undercard. Unfortunately, in the fight after this, the fight he had on this card, he suffered brain injuries and had some real issues over the journey. I didn't think he was actually going to make it through, and he's still got some issues to this day, but at least he's alive. The card itself, it was probably my first experience at boxing at a big level, with the weigh-ins and the media and everything else. And I remember our good friend over there, Eddie Montavo, who was responsible largely of lining this fight up. We had interviews with local media and YouTubers and all that sort of stuff. It was a really, really great experience. And, as I said, especially at Gleason's gym, they really welcomed us in there. I remember Michael Zarafa was actually over there fighting Peter Quillen. He was at Gleason's gym doing interviews and all that as well. So it's strange who you might run into over there in Aussie. And obviously didn't end too well for Michael in that fight as well. So this is the last round here. I think at this stage Shannon really needed a knockout. She tried her best to pull it out, but Sandy Tsgouris, just a class fighter. I'm not sure what she really did after this fight, whether she got any opportunities with this win. Didn't really hear much about her after this, but at the time she was on the verge of a world title. I think they were talking about the winner of this was going to fight for a world title, but you can see there some big shots being landed. This is the last 5 seconds of the fight. So both girls just, as I said, if you haven't seen it, just make sure you jump on YouTube and check it out, because it's an 8 2-minute round war. It was just unbelievable. And congratulations to Sandy. There's a few words sort of mentioned before the fight and during the fight, and especially after the fight. The cornerman, or Sandy's cornerman, I thought was a bit of a peanut between us. Just tended to flame the fires when it didn't really need to be done, and both girls had a lot of respect for each other, and as I said, probably didn't really need to have that. I know he had a bit of a crack at a few concern, but it is what it is. So that was Sandy Tsgouris, Shannon O'Connell. As I said, check the fight out. It's on YouTube. That was just the highlights. The full fight is on YouTube if you want to see that. Now, the other thing about this fight is the morning after this fight, we probably didn't get back to the hotel till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We had to be up at 6 to fly to Las Vegas for this fight. It is Floyd Mayweather and Sandy Tsgouris there, Andre Berto. This fight, was the day after, September 15th, 2015, MGM Grand for the WBA, WBC welterweight title. So we had to jump on the plane. We flew from Toronto over to Las Vegas. What was really good about it is we went to the expo during the day, and I'll backtrack a little bit just back to the airport, because I didn't realise at the time, but I was walking alongside Shannon. Now, the next day, she was busted up. Her eyes were out here. She had the big cut down there. Her lips were out here. She looked like she'd had that liposuction, or not the liposuction, whatever it is, no fat in the lips up there. She was a mess. She had cuts and bruises everywhere. And at the airport, I wondered why we were getting strange looks. Of course, I'm walking beside Shannon, and she's busted up. I had to say to her, Shannon, look, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to have to leave you to walk alone, because I was sort of being looked at as the abusing husband, or as you will. So she's by herself. I think Pat Meyer actually ended up sort of walking with her. But anyway, we got to the expo, and we're standing in line to see the great Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran actually spotted Shannon in line, could see that she was bust up. She'd have sunglasses on, by the way, but you could still see she was not in a good way. And Roberto Duran actually pulled her out of line, brought her to the front. gave her a big hug, took the glasses off, and got a photo with her and all that sort of stuff. So that was great. And if you haven't been to the expo in Vegas, get there. It's really great. You can meet all your heroes and get your photos with them and autographs and all that sort of stuff. So that was the prelude to this fight. I must admit, the fight itself, it probably didn't reach great heights at all. Floyd, really picked his opponent. This was his 49th fight. He did, of course, come back to fight Conor McGregor a couple of years after this, but this is probably his last real fight. And as I said, it really didn't excite. I don't think the card itself was exciting. Actually, I do remember, was it Groves fought, might have been one of Mayweather's fighters for the WBC light heavyweight title. That wasn't a bad fight, but the main event itself, Floyd pretty much won every round. I think I've got the judges' scorecards here, 120, 108, so every round. One of the judges gave it 118, 110. The other one was 117, 111. I must admit, it was really just, the event for me. It was great being there with all the guys, and after the training camp we'd had, and obviously the fight, just to go to Las Vegas and the MGM Grand, and whenever Floyd Mayweather's involved, of course, it's a massive event. So, but probably the highlight of it was the touching moment he had with his dad in the corner before the 12th round, when he told him how much he loved him and how much he appreciated he'd done for him over the journey. But the fight itself, I was really surprised at Berto. I thought he might actually offer a little bit more, but he really, didn't really offer anything. He just went through the motions, got his payday, and Floyd done his thing, got the job done, and that was it. So enough said about that one, probably the better, I think. Let's get on to the next one. This was in 2016. It was May 7th. Now, this was the first fight at T-Mobile Arena. Of course, I'm referring to Canelo Alvarez and Amir Khan. Credit to Amir Khan for coming up in weight from welterweight to fight just a beast in Canelo. This is when he was really, I think, at his peak here. This is a WBC middleweight title. Now, I was actually over here in this camp with the Bala brothers, Camille and Ibrahim Bala. We went over there and did some rounds. Roy Jones Jr.'s gym. Also had Shannon O'Connell along for this one, and strange enough, Shanika Johnson was there as well. And it's odd because I say strange because these girls actually roomed together and spent 2 or 3 weeks together, or whatever it was, trained together and everything, and ended up fighting a couple of years ago. So, and who knows, might fight again pretty soon. But so the 5 of us went over there. We did the training camp. I really wanted, this is when I was promoting all these fighters, I wanted them to, like I did with the Maloney boys a couple of years prior to this, or a year before this, I wanted the fighters to experience what big fight atmosphere is. And it's one thing to be in Australia and, I know we have big fights over the occasion, but there's nothing like going to Vegas and being, exposed to the media and the weigh-ins and just the whole event itself, and obviously the fight and the atmosphere, and that's why I did it with the Maloney's, and that's why I took the Ballas and Shannon and Shanika over there for this one. So look, it was an entertaining fight. I remember Amir Khan you could probably say won the first 5 rounds. I don't think that was the case on the official scorecards, but the feeling in the arena was that Amir Khan had done quite well. But you could also get the impression that Canelo Alvarez hadn't really even got out of first gear, and there's a reason why there's these fights are 12 rounds, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. Amir Khan fought really well, but I think the feeling was that, as we all know with Amir Khan, and at any time he can be chinned, and it could be all over, as shown a few times in his career. No one does not take a shot like Amir Khan, if that makes sense. He can be wobbled by anything, and with the power that Canelo had, especially at middleweight, I think everyone, as I said, was sort of waiting for the time. But after 5 rounds, the arena was a little bit silent. I will say a lot of the Mexican fans weren't really being very vocal, but Canelo, you can just see there again, as I said, we're not really out of first gear. He was starting to get his range. I'm not quite sure what he was doing with those things on the back of his legs, by the way. I'm pretty sure they were to do with something with cramps or something. But I think this is the 6th round here. And again, credit for Amir Khan for coming up in weight in this one, gone from 147 to 160. It's a big jump, especially against someone like Canelo. But the arena itself was awesome. Now you can see the knockout punch there good night for Amir Khan. You can actually hear the crack go right through the arena. The T-Mobile Arena, as I said, that was the first fight there. It's a brilliant arena, great for watching the fights. And they did that. I'm not sure whether anyone knows, but they actually built this arena because all the big fights they were getting there, and just events at the MGM. They put in a lot of money to get this built, because if you've ever been to the MGM, and I think I mentioned the last video I did with the Marcos Medina Floyd Mayweather fight, getting in and out of the arena, it really is tough. And there's a lot of dramas that have had in there. And I think if the shit really went down, there'd be people getting trampled and everything else. So I think they did that to relieve the pressure off the MGM for the really big events. And when I say the big events, not necessarily size-wise, but just the type of crowds they get. And as you know, with boxing can be a different type of crowd. It's not like a concert or anything like that. Boxing and UFC and that sort of stuff can get a little bit tense sometimes. The supporters can be quite passionate, so that's why they built the T-Mobile Arena to take the squeeze off the MGM Grand and put it straight across the road. They still promote it and everything else, but as I said, it's across the road. The next one, or the last one we have, is Canelo again. This is Triple G #1. Now again, the backstory to this fight. I was actually over there again with the Maloney boys. I went over there with Ronnie Picken, as well as the twins and Tony Tolge. We all went over there for a couple of weeks. We were in LA. The boys did some great sparring in LA at the Legends gym. And I remember actually Jason was doing sparring with Michael Conlon, I think it was. And I think Oscar Valdez was there. It was just a great atmosphere, and it was really good for the boys. And actually some sparring in Vegas as well. I think Jason sparred with Nonito Donaire before this fight as well, which was great. And we finished the camp off with this fight with Canelo and Triple G. And again, T-Mobile Arena, it was for the WBA, WBC middleweight title. And September 15th, 2017, in case I didn't mention that before. So, yeah, look, their feeling in the arena, look, it was a great fight. Probably a little bit more technical than what a lot of people maybe thought it would be. Canelo, I thought, probably fought a little bit too passively. Triple G really pushed the fight. The feeling in the arena was that Triple G was winning the fight. I must admit, watching the fight back, I wasn't quite sure. I thought Canelo was actually fighting a really, really smart fight. I didn't think that Triple G was dominating. I thought he might be winning the fight, but I didn't quite think that it was as one-sided as a lot of people thought it was. And obviously the scoreline reflected that. But as I said, I thought Canelo was doing a really good job. He probably, this fight reminded me, or when I watched the last fight with Dimitri Bivol, it reminded me a little bit of this fight where he tended to not throw as many punches. He laid on the ropes and he let his opponent really dictate terms. And I think he just thought he'd get through by doing, just what he has to do to get through. And this is the last guy you want to be doing that against, because Triple G was just a beast back then. This is 5 years ago. So still in his prime, or probably the tail end of his prime. I thought Triple G would maybe be in front, but then you've got to take in the Canelo tax, I suppose, you'll put on it as well, that, if the rounds are closer, most likely going to go to Canelo, and that obviously was the case, because the scores in the end, and who could forget the 118 to 110 by Adelaide Bird for Canelo. I don't think she should have got another big fight after that. I'm not quite sure whether she might have been the one that's been involved in a couple of other ones as well along the journey, but 118, that's 10 rounds to 2 for Canelo, which is just absolutely ridiculous. I must admit, I did score the fight a draw myself. I got ridiculed a little bit afterwards, but I just think all up, yes, you could probably lean towards Triple G, but that Canelo tax, what I spoke about, probably gave him a couple of rounds. So I did score it a draw, 6 rounds all. The other judge had it 115, 113 Triple G, which is 7 rounds to 5. And the other judge had it 114, which is 6 rounds each, like I had it as well. So the aftermath was quite interesting. A lot of the discussion in the crowd about it, good and bad, I suppose. A lot of debates happening, but everyone's a boxing expert, of course. And I remember the social media sites and all that afterwards were, it was the biggest robbery of all time. I just didn't see it that way. Look, if I really had to take the Canelo tax out of it, I might have had it 7 rounds to 5 for Triple G, but 6 rounds all is what I had it. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but you've got to factor a lot of these things in, that certain fighters get helped out a little bit based on their popularity, and Canelo's obviously one of those guys. But I did really feel for Triple G. I think this was his real chance to get that big win that he was always chasing, so I felt bad that he didn't get that big win on his record. I think he deserved it. They did fight obviously after this one, which is going to be in our next episode that we'll go over as well. But I thought the draw was a just result. I must say too in this one too, in this fight in the week leading up to it, it's probably the first time I'd seen Canelo really get personal. I know he has his bee in his bonnet about Triple G, and he does obviously with the third fight coming up. He still has that bee in his bonnet. I'm not quite sure I've ever seen Triple G actually do or say anything that would warrant that. But even at the weigh-in and everything else, Canelo was really in his face and really on edge with everything that Triple G did. I think he actually might have shoved him at the weigh-in as well, which is quite unlike Canelo. But it didn't really transfer into the fight. I thought it was a really mannered fight, I suppose you'd call it. Both fighters behaved themselves. Like the referee was great. Good referee is the one you don't notice. I thought he did a good job. But yeah, and that's obviously Kenny Bayless, who's refereed some of the biggest fights, of the modern era. So yeah, so as I said, the final scores were 118, 110 for Canelo, 115, 113 for Triple G, and 114, 114. So this is round 11. Again, we had a great time with this. I remember the boys were sort of noticed. This is the Maloney boys I'm referring to, were noticed by fans in the lead up to it as well. This is 2017, so a little bit before they got to that point. I think Jason might have fought for the world title a year after this one. But we also went to the Superfly tournament in LA, and I probably should have put that one in there. Maybe I'll put that in the next episode, the Superfly tournament, because that was a great experience as well. So that was at the StubHub Centre. I'm not sure what it's called these days, but that's but yeah, you can see this is the end of the fight. Canelo looks like he'd thought he'd done enough. Triple G definitely thought he'd done enough, but as we all know, the result was a draw. So that's it, guys. That was Tsgouris versus O'Connell from Toronto, Canada. Mayweather Berto from the MGM Grand in Vegas in 2015. Canelo Khan from the T-Mobile Arena in 2016. And Canelo Triple G from the T-Mobile Arena in 2017. 2018 we're going to go to in the next episode. I'm just trying to think. I haven't written it down. I probably should have. 2018 was Jeff Horn against Terence Crawford at the MGM Grand. Went over with a few of the Aussie contingent for that one. Plenty of good stories to tell there, because a lot of Aussies there for that one. The other one was Canelo and Triple G number 2 from the T-Mobile Arena. And then Canelo and Danny Jacobs, which was in May 2019. So that'll be the next 3 we'll go over, unless I can think of some others. As I said, I might have a look at that Superfly tournament, because that was an unbelievable show to go to as well. So hope you're enjoying the episodes. Look out for number 6, and we'll see you then.